the governor shut down and undermined the Second Amendment. We have no Second Amendment in the state of New Jersey right now. He's shut down the background check system that they are always advocating for. He's shut down all gun stores and also shut down all gun ranges. So you have no opportunity to buy a gun. You have no opportunity to become proficient in the Second Amendment, which many courts have upheld as being part of the Second Amendment. And we've been fighting back. We filed a lawsuit against the state of New Jersey immediately. I think we filed it on this past Monday. I'll flash the date when we filed it. I put out an announcement about it. And I've been going to the press conferences, questioning and asking Governor Murphy about this, why he supports it, why he did it. We're going to go over the video quickly. We're going to discuss it.
Today it's about New Jersey. Today it's about the climate of the quarantine and the climate of the executive actions by the governor that is basically erasing the Second Amendment as we know it.
They have. Not basically, they have. They have successfully undermined and halted the Second Amendment, right? Now, they fool people with this notion that all we want is basic background checks, common sense background checks, right? And this is why they always push for universal background checks. And the reason why they do that is because with universal background checks, you need permission and authority from the government for every aspect of firearm ownership. So prior to the law in New Jersey going into place, I would be able to transfer and sell a firearm to Daniel, specifically a long gun. And now they've undermined that because every single firearm transaction has to go through an FFL. And what have they done to the FFLs? They've shut down their ability to do a background check. And now the fact that we cannot do background checks, the state doesn't allow us to do it, or the FFLs to do it, I can no longer purchase, transfer a firearm to anybody. So they've successfully fooled the public because the people that supported these ridiculous laws are now the ones coming forward and saying, I want a gun and I want it now. And then they're going crazy to find out that you can't just go to eBay and buy a gun and have it shipped to your door.
All those horror stories that you get told. And the good thing to compare here is that there's obviously quarantine measures and executive orders getting passed in states around the country. The very few states that actually closed FFLs or closed their background check systems, the very few that did, New Jersey being one of them, most of them are walking them back, right? So Pennsylvania's walked theirs back. Several counties in California just yesterday walked theirs back. And that's why it's important that we're going to go through some of the interactions. I want to commend Alexander. I love being critical. I'm usually very mean to Alexander, but Alexander's the only person in this organization, the only group that's actually out there confronting this and trying to make this better for us. So I thank you, as just a citizen of New Jersey.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that we have to do. It's something that our founding fathers, the people that created this country, when you take the oath of office, you swear to protect it against enemies, foreign and domestic, right? Why is that really important? Because the founding fathers that created this country knew that that government can be corrupted from within. And that's exactly why that's really important that that's discussed. Nobody ever talks about that.
All right, so let's kind of go through the footage.
Well, let me just say, West Virginia have protected FFLs and the gun stores from being closed down. Virginia, Maryland, Louisiana, Arizona, and I believe Georgia's on that list as well. I mean, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
It's important to remember this when we play the words coming out of the governor's mouth, the attorney general's mouth, and the chief of the state police. Is that his title? What's his title of?
He's a superintendent of the New Jersey State Police.
Excuse me. Those three are the characters that are at these Q&A sessions that Alexander's been asking questions at. It's actually odd that there's not that many people in the room.
Well, it's a press conference.
Right.
You do have to be a member of the press. Yeah. So it's not... Now, it's funny because they have these press conferences, and whenever there's a gun control meeting, they have all these moms demand gun control groups there to ask these questions and to engage and to stand behind the governor, right? I've taken professional classes on this. I got a lot of training from professionals. I've kind of... what do you call it? I've interned for a lot of people. So I like the fact that we can have these really good objective questions that nobody else is asking. You know, and the biggest thing that I've kind of exposed and shown through going to these press conferences, interacting with the governor and these politicians, and asking the right questions, is how all levels of government, including the media, have conspired against our basic fundamental rights. Because if they were discussing anything else, if Governor Murphy and the New Jersey politicians were doing these types of infringements on any other basic right, the media would be calling Murphy a racist, a homophobe, a xenophobe, a sexist, you name it. They would be doing everything in their power to try to discredit it. And that sounds familiar. Why? Because look what they're doing to our president today. They'll never win on the facts, but they'll always try to smear the individual by putting this image that, oh, you hate these people, you hate that people.
Right. They're not talking about how things with the virus are being handled. They're talking about how he says Chinese. It becomes
exactly.
It's a race discussion. It's not about the efficacy of what they're doing or the results or anything physical that's happening. It's always just smearing the person's.
Yeah. Case in point, Governor Murphy comes out there talking about raising the fees on a firearm application from $5 to $50, from this to that. If this was any other subject,
the word racist would come up
just like that.
Yeah.
If he said we're going to do a $2 or even a free voter ID card to make sure the person that's voting is actually a United States citizen, or a person that's registered to vote,
you'd have to go through a background check.
Yeah, you have to go through a background check, of course, to make sure that
we don't want criminals voting,
of course,
and we just got to raise that fee to something reasonable, like $50. Right?
Yeah, and just imagine the outcry and just the attacks that politician would get. Case in point, I was reading many cases have shown even a free voter ID card was considered racist and discriminatory against minorities. It has a disparate impact on people of color and low-income individuals and minorities.
Forget ID cards. You don't even have to show a license.
Yeah.
Here, you just say, my name is Joe Smith, and I live at 123 Main Street.
But because it's about guns, and Governor Murphy's like, oh, guns, we need more gun laws. That's the problem to solving all the problems in Camden, Newark, and Trenton. The media support it, they applaud it, and everybody else claps for it. But if you took that word gun ID and you used the word voter ID, and it's the same exact thing, they would be calling all types of names. That's why it's important. That's why with NJ2AS News, we go there, we ask the right questions, and as you're going to see, the responses that we get, and that's why it's important to support organizations like us, because we are going and asking the right questions.
There's no one else doing it.
And there's nobody else doing it.
This is the only show in town, folks. So, again, that's why I thank you, Alexander, for taking the time to go and confront these issues, being there on the front line, and filing the lawsuit so that this is even a legal discussion that we can actually fight. But
exactly.
let's get on to talking about the content. What's been happening the last 2 days. Let's go over the response from the different aspects of our government here in New Jersey. And
we're not going to get into other news in regard to the lawsuit. It's public information. It's out there. NJ2AS.org/news. We have plenty of articles talking about it. We filed this lawsuit against Governor Murphy and the Superintendent Pat Callahan in their official capacity for their executive order that has banned and closed gun ranges. That's the small summary of it. There's more information out there. Go out there to their website and watch it. I had the opportunity on Monday to go to Governor Murphy's press conference, speak to him, ask him these couple questions. The Attorney General were there. The Superintendent of State Police, Pat Callahan, was there as well. And here's what they had to say.
Do you have one, sir? Yes.
Good afternoon, Governor. It's a question about constitutional rights. You had a long list of businesses that are exempt from the closures, but you didn't exempt self-defense centers, gun stores, FFLs, and gun ranges. Your executive order specifically says that people that are low income will be protected against any type of essential services.
Why do you believe that a liquor store, which you exempt, and home improvement stores that you exempt are more important than a place where somebody can acquire tools to protect themselves? One specific woman went public, a low-income African-American woman, saying one woman's message to politicians: don't leave me defenseless now. My second question is to Mr. Callaghan. Will you use your authority in the executive order to make an exception for gun stores, make the NICS background check go live again, because currently it's down because of the executive order, so that thousands and tens of thousands of residents can be able to protect themselves?
Just to clarify, Pat Callahan, the superintendent of state police, has the authority to change the list and say, I find these stores, these facilities, these services are critical, and they need to be exempt from being closed during this pandemic. Let's go back to what he has to say.
Just as you're about to ask your question, I was about to say, you don't normally only show up at gun events. So I could have predicted this was, you got time on your hands, obviously. Listen, we made the call on essential versus non-essential. The Attorney General is welcome to weigh in on that, as well as the Colonel. I'm comfortable where we landed, and I'll ask the Attorney General to give you a little bit more color.
I would there's a lawsuit, as you probably know, that's been filed on this very topic today, so I won't comment on the litigation, and we're not going to comment on more specifics right now until we review the lawsuit, and we'll respond accordingly in court. But I will say that the governor's executive order tracks every other executive order that has a stay-at-home provision, and none of those contain an exemption for firearms stores, and nor does the federal guidance from Homeland Security contain that type of exemption when it comes to essential facilities and non-essential facilities. So we're consistent with every other executive order that calls for stay-at-home, and we're consistent with federal guidelines, and we'll defend the governor's executive order in court.
I don't know if maybe this is some legalese that I don't comprehend, but he's saying none of the other executive orders that other jurisdictions have put in place have an exemption for firearm stores. There's only a few states that have closed firearm stores.
Yeah.
There's been, not every state has put through quarantine measures or executive orders, but there are a few that had put through stay-at-home orders, and their FFLs are open.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and on top of that, at this point when this had come out, this was yesterday, this was, what's today's date?
This is 25th.
Today's 25th. This was the 24th, right?
No, this was Monday.
Oh, this was Monday, excuse me. Well, Pennsylvania walked theirs back. A bunch of LA counties walked theirs back. So he's fundamentally, unless, again, this is some legal thing that I don't understand, he's fundamentally not telling the truth. Like, It's a minority of states that have actually put through executive orders, and a minority of those have closed FFLs. And some of those that did go that far have reversed it. So I don't know what he's talking about. Every single jurisdiction that has put through a quarantine has closed all their FFLs. There's like only 2 or 3 states in the country where they're closed right now.
Yeah, and also look how he's like looking to take guidance from the federal government. Meanwhile, he defies the federal government by making New Jersey a sanctuary state. And
they just decide when they want to flout the law. They decide when they want to obey the law.
Yeah,
so they're releasing criminals from jail. Like, meanwhile, you can't buy a firearm. I don't even understand what he's saying here.
Yeah,
it's very odd.
Well, they were clearly caught off guard, and he's trying to like sugarcoat everything. And well, let's go back.
He's trying to show that he's consistent with others, but we're not.
Yeah, he's not exactly. Now that Pennsylvania, they backpedaled on their closures of gun ranges, is New Jersey going to do the same now?
Well, think about it. Like, New Jersey has its own NICS system, right? Every other state, I think Pennsylvania has a NICS system that's their own.
Yeah.
But 90% of the states just go through the federal NICS check. It goes through wherever, Virginia or wherever the hell the office is. If we had the same thing, the state would ostensibly get the same results. At every point of purchase, every single buyer for a long arm or a pistol would get a NICS check. We ostensibly do the same thing, but in a much more convoluted process where we add our own NICS system, which gives them the right to go, hey, we turned it off. You can't do anything now. They can't do that, in other states. So someone in Texas can't turn off the NICS system, from the FBI. The only way that turns off is if the federal government turns it off.
Exactly, yeah.
So this is stupid that we even have this system. And on top of it, he's making it seem like, well, everybody does this. Like, no, everybody doesn't do this. Like, this isn't happening in other states.
This is exactly by design. That's why they wanted full control over, with so-called universal background checks to make sure that they can just turn it off whenever they want. This wasn't by mistake.
And what if this goes on for 2 months?
Exactly.
We're just shit out of luck. Like, there's nothing we can do. Oh, sorry. Like, I'm going to walk around with my state troopers protecting me. But good luck, guys, as I release all these felons into the street. And you're going to see crime tick up. If this stays on, if this goes on for a long time, it's going to tick up. I guess we're just on our own.
And for those of you watching in normal states, this is exactly what they do. They come in, they fool the people by saying, oh, they just want this common sense gun laws. They just want universal background checks to make sure that no criminals, blah, blah, blah. This is how they fabricate these things.
We want no background checks.
Yeah.
We'll just close it.
Yeah. So now they have the full authority. Nobody in New Jersey, no New Jersey resident,
legally,
lawfully, could buy, transfer a firearm whatsoever. So before, I would be able to buy or sell and trade with Daniel as long as I had my FID card, which is a whole other story. And now they've removed that ability. This is exactly why. They want to do these things. I'm sorry?
Did New York close their FFLs?
I'm not sure. So, once again, he goes back to the federal, like, oh, we do everything that the federal does. That's our guidelines and so forth. We know that's not true. They just cherry pick when they want to abide by the federal law and when they don't want to abide by the federal law. So I'm hoping within a couple days, a week, maybe 2 weeks latest, we'll have a ruling on our lawsuit that a judge will either strike down or uphold what the constitutionality of this rule is. But the fact of the matter is that even today, Governor Murphy extended the executive order to include bicycle shops, cell phone stores.
Liquor stores are open.
Liquor stores are open. Like
who could possibly argue? It's like the premise behind all of these actions is health, right? Like this is a health pandemic, so we have to close these places. Their argument, right, that I'm making now is it's not because we hate guns, it's because we're trying to protect you from this virus, right? But it's like, okay, maybe I could buy that statist-like argument that I have to give up my Second Amendment right because of some health reason, but I need to buy Jack Daniels? Like, what health purpose is that serving? Like, it just shows you it's completely arbitrary, and it's our own fault for letting it get to this point. But so this was yesterday.
That was Monday. Today's Wednesday.
Oh, today's Wednesday. Sorry.
When you're watching this on Thursday,
excuse me. It's been a long quarantine for me. Let's play now what happened subsequently after this.
You mean today's?
Yes.
All right.
So we can show the juxtaposition.
Executive actions to close down gun stores saying they are not essential. The poorest minorities living in the most dangerous cities with the highest crime rates now have absolutely no way of buying a firearm. I lived in Newark and I understand this firsthand. You surround yourself with armed guards, so clearly you understand the benefit of the Second Amendment. At this very moment, how can a New Jersey resident who isn't already a gun owner exercise their Second Amendment rights?
Yeah, listen, first of all, it's good to have you back. You and I think, have a philosophical disagreement at a very basic level in the sense of the broad question of what does a safer society look like? And a safer society, for my taste, has fewer guns and not more guns. And that the guns that do exist are in the hands of the right people, particularly trained members of law enforcement, like the guy to my left who's got a pistol on his hip. I don't know if there's any more color to add beyond that. Is there any other? I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I know I don't want to be disrespectful, but it is what it is. And again, we think, among other things, crime is. Pat's been tracking crime, it has been down, and let's hope it stays down. But we're very comfortable where we landed on that.
Follow-up question?
Thank you.
Can I follow up?
We'll go across and come back. Is that all right?
So this is where the true colors come out. Right? We know this is what they think.
Exactly.
But that is very blunt. He's basically saying, listen, I know we fundamentally disagree, and to me, a safer society is where none of you have guns and the state has guns. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm not mincing his words. That's exactly what he just said. And we don't want any of you to have guns, we can't trust you, but the government needs to be armed to the teeth.
Yeah.
They
talk code. Like,
this is what
well trained.
I've said this a million times in previous years. The government and these leftists, they don't hate guns. They love guns in the hands of the state.
Yeah.
And when I say state, I don't mean New Jersey. I mean the government, right? They buy more weapons and ammunition than any of us ever could. They're stockpiled to the teeth. They love guns. They just don't want you to have guns.
Yeah.
And that... there's nothing to say. Yeah. There's no editorialization. He just blatantly says, yes, a safer society is you disarmed and me armed.
Yeah, he didn't even address the fact that...
He didn't even address the fact that, yes, you have no right, because he knows it's a catch-22, right? How can he go about answering his question on that, right? He can either say, yeah, you're right, Alejandro. You don't have any rights right now, which is, he can't say that. That's devastating, right? On the other hand, he could obfuscate, which he kind of did, and just said, oh, we have a fundamental difference, and blah, blah, blah. I think it's safer this way, which shows his true colors, but he'll never confront that fact. You literally don't have a right now.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Very, very good statement, and it may come in useful later on.
Yeah, it definitely will. Yeah. And this is about exposing the truth. They love guns, like you just said it beautifully. This is the biggest argument I have about how they hate guns, blah, blah, blah. No, they don't. They love guns, but only when they have them.
Yeah.
Fidel Castro loves guns, but he took my grandparents' guns away. And guess what happened to my grandparents? You know, everything that they owned, my mother, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, everything that they owned was taken away from them. Right? Think about that for a second. Fidel Castro came into power, and then, the following, subsequent to that, they barged into our home and said, everything you now own is now property of the Fidelistas, and give us all your guns.
Yeah, it's a safer society when people that aren't citizens get driver's license and then can register to vote, and we could pull felons out of jail and throw them on the streets.
Yeah.
But we just don't want you having any weapons.
Yeah.
We'll keep those for ourselves.
Yeah. Is Carol Bound?
Who takes this seriously?
Is Carol Bound, the South Jersey woman that was stabbed to death in her driveway, that was begging the police every day for a gun permit so she can get a gun to protect herself against her psychotic, violent ex-boyfriend? Is she safer today than she was before she was murdered? Right? Like, this is the insanity of the mentality of individuals like Governor Murphy.
And it's because we have a system that's set up by them where we have to ask for permission at every juncture. And there's all these roadblocks. That's why half the people who didn't buy a gun before this pandemic are now going nuts, going, I want a gun. And they're realizing, holy shit, it's actually really damn hard to get a gun. It's not just, they told me that I can just buy one online, or I can, the left makes it seem like it's this, it's a buffet that's open that you can just go and get whatever you want.
Loopholes, all these gun show loopholes.
I have 2 handgun permits right now that I can't use. They're useless. I had to wait a month and change for it. I had to go through a background check for my FID card. I had to go through a background check for the handgun permit. And now I can't do anything with it. Unless I want to commit a crime, I cannot legally acquire a firearm right now.
Yeah.
So it's funny that that clip may be the best thing he said in this entire sequence. But now let's get over to
it gets juicier, I think.
Yeah, when he punts over to the state police.
We'll go across and come back. Is that all right?
Thank you,
Actually, let's start with you and we'll go the other way.
Thank you, Governor.
We'll get this out of your system and mine.
He's kind of affable though.
They're part of the Constitution, so people do have the right to defend themselves.
I respect the Second Amendment. I just want to make sure.
Well, I understand that.
He respects the Second Amendment.
This is the best part. Look how he kind of gets nervous and he kind of like, chuckles like,
That's the line that every statist, every leftist always has to say. I respect the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
Everyone says, but I'm going to make sure you can't buy any.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
I respect it, but I'm going to eliminate it, and you cannot legally buy anything during this executive ordinance. It's how can anyone take this seriously?
Yeah.
It's a joke.
It's a joke.
This is the typical political move, right? Because you need the sound bite, like, oh, I respect the Second Amendment. There you go. Keep going. Let's go.
So clearly you understand it and respect it, but there's people that live in fear every day. We're seeing a lot of people coming forward wanting to buy a gun for self-defense, and they don't have that ability now because of your executive action. They don't have the leisures that you do as a government official.
Listen,
and if less guns reduce crime, will you give up your personal bodyguards and wait police?
Listen, that's my personal bodyguards is not my decision. It's his decision, and you can deal with him.
What? Poor guy.
Exactly.
So you're killing me. You should have left that first question there for him to answer that. Instead, he's talked about the bodyguard. So now he's having this discussion about, we can talk to that guy about the bodyguards.
But look how now he's the victim, right? Like, I'm just like,
well, he's deflecting. He's saying, this isn't my call.
But of course, like,
it is your call. You're the governor. If you really think it's so much more dangerous having firearms around, why would you walk around with them around you constantly with the state police?
Yeah, he's not panicking that the superintendent of police has a gun. He's boasting about it. I got a guy right here with a gun. And by the way, I forgot to mention, he had 2 other bodyguards in the auditorium there. I'll play maybe some B-roll of both the bodyguards standing there, one side on each side of the room. But the guy has 3 personal bodyguards that we know about that are obvious there to protect him. Obviously, here there to protect him. But
notice here how he's going to punt to the state police, which is important, and we'll follow up on that.
Go with him offline. I've got exactly not one complaint from anybody that they were trying to buy a gun.
Pause. Okay, this is a critical thing. Now he goes on to say, I have not gotten one complaint from anyone saying that they're trying to buy a gun. You have a lawsuit sitting in front of you for exactly that.
Yeah.
You just got asked the day before by him about that very fact that his members are complaining that they're trying to buy guns and they can't. And there are hundreds of people reaching out to him right now talking about this. He addressed the day before and deflected to the Attorney General and said, what, do you want to answer that? And the Attorney General said, I'm aware that there's a lawsuit right now that I won't comment on. And the next day, he goes and says, I'm not aware of anyone trying to buy a gun. Like, you can't make this shit up. Like, it's completely contradictory.
And here's the irony. Not an irony, it just exposes, like, in their minds, they think nobody should have a gun, and why would anybody want to buy a gun, right? Therefore, we should just turn off the ability for people to do it. Every article, every news thing, every gun store I speak to sold out. Ammunition companies sold out. Supply companies sold out. So clearly people are running out there and buying guns. And the mere fact that the police departments are overwhelmed with new applicants shows you that people want to go out and buy guns.
Plus, we can just go to Pennsylvania and buy it. Like the funny thing is, they're not curbing any. I could either
go to Pennsylvania, but
I could go buy ammunition in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, but you can't buy a firearm in Pennsylvania.
No, but they're closing the FFLs, right? So we have nowhere to buy ammo right now. And he's arguing that, we're making it safer. He said, I think it's a safer society when we close these places. It's still not stopping me from going to another state. You can buy long arms in other states as long as they comply with our laws. Like, I still have the ability to go buy a long arm in another state and bring it back here lawfully, as long as that long arm complies with New Jersey's, laws. So you're not even curbing people's ability to do it. You're just curbing their ability to do it here, to do it lawfully here. And what you're really doing is just pushing all the actual criminals to do it on the black market, which is where they do it anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's very important to note that line. Well, I'm not aware that this is going on. Like, of course you're aware. You just addressed the lawsuit yesterday that is sitting on your lap right now.
Not to mention his social media has been flooded with complaints about this.
They know what they're doing.
Of course they know what they're doing.
This is the most dumb platitude he maybe has said yet.
Than you, and I respect that. But beyond that, I'm going to stay with what I've said already. Thank you for coming on. Dave.
So, yeah, I mean, that was the end of it.
Yeah.
It's just the insanity, and I think what's happening now in America is the fact of the matter is their agenda is becoming more and more exposed. And the reason why they're doing this is they're becoming more arrogant, where before it went from nobody's trying to take your guns away to now it's, hell yeah, give me your, I'm going to take your AR-15.
This is just a difference of opinion.
Yeah.
You and I have a different foundational basis, and I'm going to stick by what I think. And I'm not aware that anyone has a problem with this system, right? They're going to just say this through their teeth, probably, until this stuff gets lifted anyway, when the courts open back up. But look, the lawsuit's sitting in their lap right now. Yeah. So they're going to have to address that.
They're going to have to address that. Guys, I hope this was very informative about the arrogance of our New Jersey government. Not to also mention the governor, because you can see throughout all the people that were asking these questions and how reflective it is. the Attorney General, the governor, they all mentioned about how their legal teams all said it's okay. I mean, this is the level of insanity. This is how deep they've infiltrated into undermining not only New Jersey, but the United States. That's exactly what they want to do. And they're so radical that they want to make sure that they're the only ones with guns, because they eventually know there's going to be a tipping point where people are going to say enough is enough. And the biggest problem, is because of this arrogance of, look what we did in New Jersey, right? We could do the same thing in Virginia. Well, hello, what happened in Virginia? 20, 30,000 people, maybe 50,000 people showed up protesting the fact that they promised that they were going to pass New Jersey-style gun control. That's what we have to stop. We're getting to these these cleavages in society where people are just going to say enough is enough, and it might get ugly. So we need your support to help fund this lawsuit and to fight back, because not only would it be good to give it back to Murphy and the Attorney General and his administration, but we also need to create good case law so they cannot do this again. They won, right? They got everything they wanted. We just want universal background checks so criminals can't go to gun shows, blah, 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 blah. All this garbage that they feed people of why they want to do these things. Well, hello, this is the perfect reason why we need firearms, and that's why they took it away. Right. That's exactly why. They control it so that only the government of New Jersey can tell you when you can buy a gun or when you cannot buy a gun. And now they've exploited this tragic situation into pushing forward their agenda, and it's becoming more and more exposed. So we're doing what we need to do on our end to make sure that people wake up to this, and we do not have this happen again, and we can start reversing these actions from the governor, the New Jersey government, and even on the federal government as well.
I hope people are aware, just on a side note, this isn't even a Second Amendment thing, but there's many police departments across the country right now publicly saying, here is a list of crimes that we will not come out for. Right? A burglary where there's no bodily injury, or of a theft where the person's no longer there, or a domestic incident where there's no medical need or no harm done. There's every department around the country right now is establishing these protocols, and it's finally illustrating to people, the Warren versus DC, like all of these precedents in the courts, in district courts and in state courts, that the police have no duty to protect you. So when you add that to the fact that now the police are saying they're not even going to come out for many calls or for certain calls, and then on top of that, your governor is opening the jails and letting convicts out into the streets, and then telling you, by the way, you can't buy anything. You can't buy a firearm. This is a collective thing. It's not just one thing that is making this a potential recipe for disaster for certain people. I really hope, everyone stays safe out there, and keep in mind that, there is only Alexander right now on the front line. There's nobody else asking these questions, at these press conferences. So please do what you can to support the organization. If you can make a donation, fantastic. We would love to see everybody come together so we can turn this around, and hopefully we will have more that we can share in the near future, and hopefully we have some very good results with this lawsuit.
Yeah, and it's about engagement. It's about getting involved. We're going to talk more about Daniel, how he got involved in his local politics, but it's about getting involved. If many people ask us how they can help, you can help monetarily. If you don't want to help monetarily and you don't have, you can't make a contribution, but you have a really good skill set, we're always looking for good volunteers to help out. People are fed up right now. People are sick and tired, and people are waking up. This is a very tragic situation what's going on.
Especially now, because they can't buy anything.
Because they cannot buy anything. And
the people that are waking up are the ones that weren't already on our side. That's the funny part. The people that are members of NJ2AS and people that are firearms enthusiasts, they already knew these. This was a draconian
preaching to the choir.
Right. This is probably boring for you to hear.
Yeah.
It's beautiful hearing these limousine liberals in rich towns that never wanted a gun, and now when they see all this hysteria on the brink of happening, and they're like, oh, I want to go buy a gun, and they're livid. Yeah. They're livid that it's not this easy thing that's been painted their whole lives to them. Oh yeah, people can just snap their finger and get a firearm in New Jersey.
For a perfect example, we have a section on our website that explains how you can buy a gun in New Jersey. We might get a couple hundred views a month on that page, 2, 3, 4, 500 views, whatever they may be. Everything is tracked with Google Analytics. In 2 days, we had over 18,000 unique visitors just onto that one page. If you Google how to buy gun NJ, that one page pops up, and I see.
Talk to your local FFLs; they'll tell you.
Oh, and talk to FFLs, and then they're calling us saying, "I followed the instructions on your website, but the XYZ was closed. The background check was closed. My local police department says they're overwhelmed with other things and they can't do it right now. Why do I have to do this? I thought it was in the Constitution. I thought I can order a gun online."
Right, New Brunswick temporarily.
New
put
Brunswick
on their website.
Yeah.
We're not accepting new applicants. What is this? You just arbitrarily decide that you.
Yeah.
This is what I mean. This is starting to wake up the people that were on the fence or maybe didn't care about the Second Amendment. And I'm really, like I said, I'm glad this lawsuit's going forward. We have our local friend at Legends, involved. Ira's involved. Great guy. We're members of that range as well. So look, I'm excited that for the prospect of this to, at the very least, set a precedent so this doesn't happen again, and hopefully at the very best reverses it.
Yeah. Well, this definitely gives us, no pun intended, ammunition to fight back and to use in future lawsuits about why we have to sue to overturn these processes so that it doesn't happen again. That's the reality of it. We know many people living in other normal states, as I like to call them, that are not dealing with this.
Right.
But as all of you know, what happens in New Jersey does not stay in New Jersey, right? And that's the fact of the matter. So, time to kick some butt, guys. Time to get engaged. Reach out to us, NJ2AS.org. The contact page is right there. Call us up, whatever it may be. Send us a message. Ask how you can get involved. We can talk about that because this is going to be a very pivotal moment in American history on how people perceive and want to exercise their basic and constitutional rights.
And send all feedback in Spanish for Alejandro.
Yes.
Exclusively.
Hola.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys. See you later.